What is going on, everybody? Nathan King here with Auburn Undercover and the Auburn Undercover podcast, back here with another edition of the War Eagle Wakeup. Recording this here on a Tuesday, so you'll see this here on Wednesday morning. Got a basketball edition of the show today. We caught up with Bruce Pearl on Monday before his annual For the Children golf fundraiser for Children's Harbor out there in Alexander City. And it's been a minute. It's been a couple months since we talked to Bruce Pearl in his kind of annual wrap-up post-game, or not post-game, but his wrap-up press conference at the end of last season. It's been a couple months since March. Obviously, a lot has gone on for the Tigers since then, and they're pretty close to completing this roster. So wanted to kind of dive into what he talked about. The first one we'll get into here is the newest addition for this Auburn team, somebody that not everybody may know a ton about yet, and that is Jaemyn Hudson, who signed with Auburn last Friday. Of course, the Tigers have had two main focuses in the transfer portal so far. It's been point guard. It's been getting another point guard, which they got in JP Pegues. It's been a full reset at point guard, so Auburn will need another one moving forward. And they also needed a power forward, somebody to complement Chaney Johnson. They went after some higher level guys like Aker, who never made it to campus for a visit from Samford, and then Dylan Mitchell, who did make it to campus from Texas, but ended up committing to Cincinnati. So they kind of, swing and miss is what some people have kind of been saying. There's been, a variety of reasons why, some of these guys didn't really work out for Auburn. Bruce Pearl kind of admitted, hey, I want to focus on my current roster. And yes, he does mean that in an NIL sense. We'll get to that a little bit more later, but a little bit about Jaemyn Hudson. By the way, his nickname is Turtle. I'm not sure if that's something he had before, or if that's something that Bruce Pearl just gave to him. He told us on Monday that he calls him Turtle because he said he's got big shoulders and kind of a small neck that sits down in that. And so 6'7", 230, 240 pounds. This is a guy who comes in as a true backup, or at least he was at his previous spot. Only about 15 minutes per game at SMU. Played 2 seasons at Georgia State. Started a bunch of games there. Wasn't a full-time starter, but did start a bunch. He had a really good sophomore season that he kind of parlayed into the transfer portal. But obviously he is going to now pair with Chaney Johnson. That puts a lot of, pressure is the right word. But Chaney Johnson's got to, step up next season. Now, Auburn really, really likes what they saw out of him at the end of last year. Bruce Pearl talked about summer workouts in particular. Chaney Johnson's going to have to be more aggressive. He's going to have to be a guy that Auburn gets the ball to consistently, kind of as a focal point. He's not going to be Jalen Williams right away, but he is somebody that Auburn, is super, super excited about in terms of what he showed down the stretch of last season. Was a guy that really, really came on down the stretch. And so when you're looking at a guy like Jaemyn Hudson, not sure he is going to come in and contend for that starting role. He's somebody that is, I think, content to be a backup. And the reason I say that is because when he visited Auburn, he said, I've never dreamed of having an opportunity like this. A Georgia guy, kind of saw the rise of the Auburn program while he was in high school playing there in Marietta. So obviously he is going to come in and compete. And Bruce Pearl said it's a good fit because he didn't want to throw off the chemistry. He feels like Jaemyn Hudson is going to be somebody who fits in with that front court really well. He said he talked to all 3 of his coaches that he played for in college, and they said he was one of their favorite players on those teams. So that's always some high marks from a coach to say once somebody goes in the transfer portal. So Jaemyn Hudson is the newest one for Auburn. Of course, JP Pegues is a guy that comes in from Furman. He committed about a month ago, got on campus last week, as Auburn will get set to start summer workouts, by the way, as we're recording this here on the 21st of May. They'll start summer workouts a couple days after Memorial Day, so only a week until the team starts to reconvene. So let's talk about what that roster is going to look like in that final roster spot, because this is where things get pretty interesting. Bruce Pearl wants a guard. He wants another guard. Most people have assumed that would just be another point guard because you've got JP Pegues, no Aiden Holloway, no Trey Donaldson, and Tahad Pettiford, who's the number 2 point guard recruit in the country, who is now set to join the team, a 5-star recruit. He's not going to be pigeonholed at point guard. Bruce Pearl has been very adamant about that throughout this entire process of getting him onto campus, even leading up after he signed a couple months ago at the end of the season, saying, hey, we think he's explosive. We think he's going to be able to score off the ball. And Bruce Pearl said it on Monday. He said, I don't want him to be in a situation where handling the ball, handling the offense too much sort of stunts his growth. Is he kind of talking about what happened there with Aiden Holloway last season? Maybe, but he believes that Todd Pettiford is going to be able to contribute off the ball really well in his first season. What that means, Pettiford in particular, gives Auburn a lot of flexibility in the backcourt right now. So now they're in a situation where their guards are JP McGeese, Tahad Pettiford, who can pretty much play with the 1 or the 2, Denver Jones, who is pretty much a 2, but Bruce Pearl did say that Denver Jones may see some more point guard next year. Again, that kind of goes into the flexibility of this all. And then he said even a guy like a Ja'Kai Howard, who's a 6'6" freshman there on the wing, number 63 recruit in the country, who's coming in with Pettiford as part of that 24 class, said, hey, he could develop into kind of a lengthy guard down the road. And so because of that flexibility, particularly that Pettiford provides, it's essentially best fit right now. Bruce Pearl is looking in the transfer portal, kind of wants to get it done within the next couple weeks so that that player is not late for spring workouts and gets in with everybody else. It's pretty much best fit. Who is going to be the guy that fits into this backcourt the best? Bruce said it could be a 1, it could be a 1 or a 2, it could be a 2/3. Any of those guys, because he feels confident enough. Chad Baker-Mazara is back at the 3 spot as well. He feels confident enough that they can figure out that lineup. If it is a guy who's more of a 2, he'd play behind Denver Jones, and then Todd Pettiford would play more point guard. If it's a guy who's a true point guard, okay, Pettiford is probably going to be playing more of the 2. And so Auburn is afforded a lot of flexibility right now when it comes to that decision. As for names, there's been nobody confirmed right now getting on campus. We would imagine within the next few days, Auburn is going to want to change that. Going into the weekend and going into next week again. If they are going to start workouts next week, you don't want that last roster addition to be too late showing up. Speaking of roster additions, guys coming back to the roster, nobody bigger in that front than Johni Broome. Auburn's returning All-American. Bruce Pearl confirmed on Monday. He said the transfer portal was never an option for Johni Broome. Bruce Pearl, after the season, laid out the options with Johni, came into his office. They had the discussion a couple weeks after the season ended. He said, look, you can either come back to Auburn, you can hit the portal, and you can test your transfer value and see what that looks like, or you can turn pro. And Johni Broome stopped him and said, I'm not entering the transfer portal. So if he was going to play another season of college basketball, it was going to be at Auburn, and that's obviously what he decided to do. This kind of goes back to what I was talking about earlier with NIL. Bruce Pearl admitted it, and he said, the collective treated him fairly. We know that Johni Broome obviously got very handsomely compensated for coming back, and that is sort of the basis for why some of these roster moves have happened the way that they have for Auburn. Look, it's very rare in college basketball. It's a rarity that you get to bring back an All-American, and in this day and age, NIL is a massive part of that. We knew that was going to be the case. Bruce Pearl talked about that from the end of the season, that that is going to be the case for Johni Broome, weighing NIL versus professional contracts, whether that be G League, a 2-way contract, a European contract, what have you. He's has to sort of weigh those options. Obviously felt that Auburn was in his best interest there. It's interesting. Bruce Pearl said that from talking to Johni, obviously Johni talking to his agent, who was getting feedback from the NBA sphere of things, said that Broome's stock didn't really change that much from last year. Obviously, he had an All-American season, one of the most efficient seasons in the country from a big man perspective. He is going to be one of the 2 or 3 best returning big men in college basketball. You make the argument that he's the best returning big man going into next year, despite all of that and despite all the areas he improved in, because of his position, because he's maybe a little bit of an undersized center, because of the way he plays. Bruce Pearl said, look, he's probably a guy who's going to have to play his way onto a team. Said the same thing about Jalen Williams, who's obviously getting ready for the draft right now because of his style and what he sort of resembles in terms of that position on the floor. Maybe we'll have to play his way. Obviously, neither of them were super highly regarded in the first place, but I just thought that was interesting. We'll go through this whole process again. Obviously, he will have no option of returning, that being Johni Broome. He'll have no option of returning next year, but it'll still be interesting to kind of see what that draft process looks like. But yeah, Johni Broome, obviously the centerpiece for next season. Bruce also had some interesting things to say about Dylan Cardwell as he was sort of flipping the page to summer workouts. He said, look, Dylan is somebody, they get him back next year, 2 fifth-year seniors at center. He said, look, Dylan is somebody that plays within Auburn's system so well. He knows his responsibilities on defense, but particularly on offense, playing in that screen game, handing off, catching lobs, what he does so well. Bruce kind of said, I want him to step outside the box a little bit. And so that's something that he'll be looking at this offseason, sort of expanding his offensive game. The same can be said for somebody like Chaney Johnson. He is going to have to take on a bigger role. Denver Jones there in the backcourt. Bruce said, again, it depends on the personnel, depends on what they do at guard, but he could play more point guard. And Bruce said, we want to see Denver Jones with the ball in his hands. I think it was Auburn's last 8 games of the season. He shot 50% on the dot. Might have been 53% if I'm remembering correctly. It was 50% or above from 3-point range on like 4 attempts per game. So a phenomenal finish. They feel like they sort of unlocked Denver Jones down the stretch last season. He was an absolute flamethrower for them. And so they think he can be one of their 2 or 3 best players next season. Absolutely. And then Chad Baker-Mazara. Look, Bruce said it's no secret. They obviously want him to bulk up. It's his second offseason with the program. He's going to be relied upon even more. That position he plays on the wing, it sort of, draws other really good, really athletic players, especially in the SEC, continues to only get better as a conference. So bulking up, getting stronger. He's obviously that long, kind of lanky frame being Chad Baker-Mazara. But Bruce Pearl said, look, 6'7", can shoot the ball and can defend. Like, he's a pro. Like, that is what you look for in kind of a professional wing at that 6'7", 6'8". So if he can add that muscle a little bit more, become a little bit more stout defensively, obviously help him on offense as well. That's another thing that Auburn will be looking at in summer workouts. So we will keep you guys updated on what they want to do with this last roster spot. Again, I'm going to have a story up on Auburn Undercover. I guess that'll be Wednesday morning, going through all this. It'll be for VIP subscribers. So if you guys aren't a subscriber, go check us out, auburnundercover.com. If you like what you see, there's going to be lots of great recruiting coverage from a football perspective. Christian and Jason have some great stuff on their assessments of some Auburn targets. And then the new 24/7 rankings will come out. And so we'll see what Auburn's guys look like in the 2025 class. Tomorrow being Wednesday, I guess today being Wednesday when you guys watch this. Thanks for watching the War Eagle Wake Up and catching up on some Auburn basketball with me. I am Nathan King. We will talk to you guys later.